She stood outside the door to the courtroom for 3 full minutes before going in. Not because she was scared, not because she wasn't sure what she was going to do. But Christine Brown knew, in a way that only someone who had given 17 years of her life to a man, a family, and a faith could know, that there was no version of herself that ever walked back out of that door. 4 women who used to call each other sister are now sitting on opposite sides of the aisle in that courtroom. A man who promised God that he would love them all equally is 4 hours late to the hearing that will show how unfair that love really was. And in a manila folder on the plaintiff's table is a financial document that is so damaging, so carefully hidden, and so coldly planned that when the judge finally reads it out loud, 2 people in that courtroom will stop breathing at the same time. Kody Brown is one of them. The other one will surprise you. This isn't the same family you saw on TV. The cameras only ever showed you what they wanted you to see. No one has ever told the story of what went on behind the money, the faith, and the carefully controlled smiles. Up until today. Don't go anywhere. In the next 40 minutes, everything you thought you knew about the Brown family will be taken apart piece by piece in a Salt Lake City courtroom. I promise you that the truth is much darker, more human, and worse than any episode that ever aired. Leave a comment right now and tell us which wife you think knew the most and said the least. Don't stop watching, because that answer will ruin you. The courthouse steps are wet from a light rain that fell early in the morning and has since stopped. The stone surface is now slick and dark. Christine looks at her own reflection in a puddle at the bottom of the steps for a second, just long enough to barely see who she is. The woman looking back at her has on a charcoal coat, sensible heels, and little makeup. The woman looking back at her looks like someone who has been rebuilding herself from the inside out for the past 2 years, one careful brick at a time. She is not the woman who used to laugh too loudly at dinner to break the silence. She is not the woman who cried in her car in the driveway because she couldn't bring it inside. She is not the woman who told herself for years that the pain in her chest was spiritual growth and not a slow death. That lady is no longer here. What took her place is standing on these courthouse steps, taking in the cold October air, and she is ready. But being ready and being at peace are 2 very different things, and Christine Brown has never been very good at lying to herself for long. The building has a certain stillness inside that comes from working with pain every day, the kind of quiet that isn't really quiet at all. It's full of muffled voices, cases piled up in filing rooms, and arguments that used to be the most important thing in someone's life, but are now just numbers in a system. Christine has never been to a courthouse like this one before. Before this process, she didn't know much about the law. All she knew was what her husband had told her about how to deal with the legal issues of plural marriage with a series of lawyers over the years. She was never the one who needed to read contracts. She never read the fine print. She is only now starting to fully understand that that was a mistake. Dana Calloway takes her through the security checkpoint without stopping. She talks in a low, clear voice about what the morning will be like, what Christine should and shouldn't react to, and where to look during the opening statements. Christine shakes her head. She takes it in. She carefully puts away each piece of advice. Don't react to anything you hear today, Dana says as they walk down the hall to their assigned courtroom. Not to the numbers, not to anything Holt says. And especially not to anything that comes up unexpectedly. Christine stares at her. Are you hoping for something that isn't going to happen? Dana doesn't answer right away. She fixes the strap on her briefcase and keeps going. She finally says, In 20 years of family law, I've learned to expect the worst and plan for it. It doesn't answer. Christine knows it right away. And the little cold knot in her stomach that has been there since she woke up this morning gets a little tighter. The smile doesn't last very long. When the thing you're smiling about is full of history and pain, it never does. Christine puts her coffee down and leans back in her chair. She puts her fingers together in her lap like she does when she is trying to think clearly, but her feelings are pulling her in the opposite direction. For 11 years. She hasn't said Carolyn Mark's name out loud in 11 years. Not in prayer, not in conversation. not even when the house was finally quiet and dark in her bedroom. It takes a lot of discipline to stop thinking about someone every day, and Christine had mastered it so well that she almost believed that she had really erased them. It wasn't real. It was just so neat. Christine asks, "How much does she know?" She speaks in a steady voice. That makes her proud. Dana opens her briefcase and takes out a thin folder. She pushes it across the table but keeps 2 fingers on it, not giving it to him yet, just acknowledging that it is there. Enough to matter. The property she is talking about is a piece of land outside of Flagstaff that Kody and Robyn bought in 2011, about 18 months after they got married. It was bought through a shell LLC, which is not Brown Family Enterprises, a completely different business. The deed lists one co-owner along with Kody. Christine already knows what the answer is before she asks. Carolyn. Yes, Carolyn Marks. This means that Kody had a financial relationship with this woman that was completely separate from the family, which is bad enough. Or... Dana stops, and in that pause lives something much heavier. Or someone in the family knew, Christine says to end. The air in the meeting room changes. If someone in the family knew about Carolyn Marks and didn't say anything, kept that secret while the other wives put their savings, years, and whole lives into a shared financial pool, then this is not just a story about a marriage falling apart. This story is about betrayal on a level that will leave you speechless. Dana lifts her 2 fingers off the folder and pushes it the rest of the way across the table. Christine slowly opens it. There are 3 printed email chains inside, and the dates are clear in the header of each one. She stops after reading the first 2 lines of the first email, puts the page face down on the table, breathes. She says softly, "My Kelty can't see this." Okay. And Janelle. Christine stops herself, thinks again. Janelle needs to know before she hears it in court. She deserves to know. Dana agrees. I've already called her lawyer. A court officer's voice can be heard faintly through the wall from down the hall. 5 minutes, counsel. 5 minutes until they get back together. Until the afternoon session starts. Until whatever shaky sense of control the people in that building have is put to the test again. Christine shuts the folder. Stands. She straightens out her coat. She has walked into tough rooms before. She has sat through long, difficult silences, faced hard truths, and made it through hard years. But nothing in the 17 years of her plural marriage has prepared her for what is waiting for her on the other side of that courtroom door this afternoon. The light coming through the courtroom's high windows has changed from gray to something almost amber, the kind of light that makes everything look both warmer and more final in late October. Christine sits down. Dana puts her notes in order. Raymond Holt is leaning close to his assistant across the room and whispering something with the calm urgency of a man who has just found a problem he can't fix right away. Kody Brown has not yet entered the courtroom. The judge, Walsh, comes in. Everyone gets up. Everyone sits down. And then Dana Calloway does something that everyone in the room is shocked by. She asks Carolyn Marks to come to the stand. The response is quick and physical. Raymond Holt is already on his feet before Carolyn even gets up from her seat in the gallery. Objection, Your Honor. This witness was not mentioned in the pretrial submissions. She was added to the extra witness list that was filed at 7:42 this morning, Dana says calmly, not turning around. Counsel was told. Holt's jaw gets tight. We got it at 7:42 this. That's why I let it happen, Judge Walsh says, sounding like someone who has heard every version of this argument. You have had the morning break and the lunch hour, Mr. Holt. Objection overruled. Ms. Marks, please come forward. Everyone in the gallery watches Carolyn Marks walk to the witness stand. The silence is the kind that happens when a lot of people suddenly realize they are seeing something they weren't supposed to see. Carolyn is calm. She is a woman in her late 40s who has a calm self-control that comes from having been through hard times and keeping her dignity. She sits down in the witness chair, adjusts the microphone, and puts her hands in her lap. She doesn't look at Christine. She doesn't look at the table for the defense. She looks right at Dana Calloway. "Ms. Marks," Dana starts. "Can you tell me about your relationship with Kody Brown?" Carolyn says, "We were in a serious relationship for about 2 years." Her voice is clear and calm. "From 2008 to 2010, before he married Robyn legally." A sound goes through the gallery that isn't quite a gasp. It's something quieter and more unsettling. "And during that time," Dana goes on, "did you learn about the Brown family's finances?" "Yes, I was shown documents." Carolyn stops for a moment. "Kody showed them as proof that the family's finances were stable enough to," he used the phrase, "bring someone new in." "That means you. That means me." Dana lets that go. Lets the room take in what it means. Kody was selling their life together while the wives were running the household, raising the kids, and keeping the money flowing. Dana asks, "What about the Flagstaff property?" Carolyn stays calm. But there is something behind her eyes that is old and not yet resolved. "That," she says slowly, "is where it gets hard." And at the same time, everyone in that courtroom leans forward. The word complicated hangs in the air of the courtroom like smoke. There is no rush for Dana Calloway. She has too much experience to do that. She knows that the most powerful times in a courtroom are not the ones you force, but the ones you make room for and let breathe until the silence itself becomes pressure. She slowly walks up to the witness stand and asks the question that everyone is waiting for. "Ms. Marks, can you tell the court what your role was in the Flagstaff property?" Carolyn opens her hands in her lap, folds them again, a small act that costs her something. She starts by saying, "In 2011, Kody contacted me. We hadn't talked in about a year at that point. The relationship had ended. Not badly, but definitely. I had moved on with my life." She stops. "He told me he had an investment opportunity, a piece of land outside of Flagstaff that he thought would go up a lot in value in 5 years. He needed someone to co-sign the LLC because, as he put it, the family accounts were being restructured and he needed the asset to be held separately for tax reasons." "And you said yes?" "I was 37. I had money saved up, and I trusted him." A pause. "I made a mistake." She says it without anger, which makes it hit harder than anger ever could. Dana goes to the projector. The same spreadsheet from the morning session is on the screen again, but this time a column on the far right is highlighted. It shows a series of transfers, each for a small amount but a large amount overall, moving from Brown Family Enterprises to the Flagstaff LLC over the course of 4 years. "Ms. Marks, did you know that money from the Brown family's joint accounts was being moved to the LLC that you and Kody owned together?" Carolyn stares at the screen. Her jaw gets a little tighter. "No, I wasn't." "When did you find it?" 8 months ago, when a financial investigator got in touch with me." She stops. "Working for the lawyers who work for Christine Brown." Christine keeps her eyes on the plaintiff's table. She doesn't change her face, but she holds the edge of her chair with her hand under the table. Raymond Holt is writing like crazy. His assistant is already on the phone, probably trying to reach Kody and not getting an answer. "Ms. Marks," Dana says, her voice dropping just a little, like someone getting closer to the center of something. "Did any member of the Brown family besides Kody know about this LLC?" There is a 4-second pause after that. Christine counts them. "Yes," Carolyn says. "Who?" Finally, Carolyn turns her head. Not toward Christine. Not in the direction of the defense table. She looks straight into the gallery, at the second row, at the woman who is sitting perfectly still with her hands folded and her eyes down. Meri Brown. And the people in the courtroom don't gasp. It goes completely, horribly quiet. Meri Brown doesn't look up. Not the gasp that breaks the silence, not Raymond Holt's objection, not even Judge Walsh's gavel bringing order back. That is what everyone will remember. People will remember that Meri Brown, who is sitting in the second row of that gallery, doesn't look up. Looks like they aren't surprised. Doesn't look at Carolyn Marks, Christine, or anyone else. She sits very still with her hands folded in her lap and stares at the floor in front of her as if she is reading something written there that only she can see. Christine turns all the way around in her seat. One time only. Just long enough to see Meri's face, and what she sees there isn't guilt. It's tiredness. The specific, empty exhaustion of someone who has been carrying a secret for so long that it has become a burden. If you take it away, everything falls apart. If everyone agrees to keep their share of the silence, you can get through almost anything as a family. Everyone else feels the weight shift when one person puts down their burden. Order, Judge Walsh says firmly, and the crowd goes back to being quiet, but not too quiet. Holt is standing up. Your Honor, I must object to the implication that the lawyer is letting this witness make accusations against someone who is not a party to this case. Ms. Marks said something that was true, Dana says calmly. I plan to prove what that fact means, which will determine whether it is an accusation. Judge Walsh looks at both of them. Ms. Calloway, you may continue. Be careful. Dana looks back at Carolyn. Ms. Marks, how do you know that Meri Brown knew about the LLC? Carolyn takes a single printed page out of the folder on the railing in front of her. She was allowed to bring the folder to the stand as a memory aid. In March 2012, I got an email from an address I didn't know at first. The sender said she was a member of the Brown family and that the investment deal with Kody was not what I had been told. She said the money moving through the LLC was not clean and told me to get out while I still could. And who sent that? The email signature said M. Brown. Carolyn stops. I later checked the metadata and found that the account belonged to Meri Brown. Dana uses the silence to her advantage again. Did you listen to her? I tried, but by then the LLC papers had my name on 2 years' worth of transfers. Carolyn's voice gets a little tight. Getting out wasn't easy anymore. Meri has finally looked up in the gallery. Her eyes are bloodshot. Not from crying, but from the strain of not crying when every instinct tells you to. She sees Christine's face across the room. And in that look, in that one wordless exchange between two women who have been on opposite sides of every invisible line this family has drawn for years, something passes between them. Not forgiving. Not yet. Something that is more difficult and more honest than forgiving. Acknowledgement. Meri Brown didn't stay quiet to keep Kody safe. She didn't say anything because she was scared. When a family is based on faith, loyalty, and constantly managing other people's feelings, fear can look a lot like complicity. Dana lets the moment last as long as it needs to. Then she looks at the judge. Your Honor, I would like to show the email as Plaintiff's Exhibit 14. That's it, Judge Walsh says. Raymond Holt sits back down with a thud. This morning, his silver hair was perfectly styled, but now one strand is out of place. It's not a big deal. It seems important. A door opens quietly in the hallway outside the courtroom, where nobody in the gallery can see it. A man in a dark coat walks in and sits in the very back row. Kody Brown is finally here. He is 4 hours late to take apart everything he built, and judging by the look on his face as he looks around the room, at the spreadsheets on the screen, Carolyn Marks on the stand, and Meri's red-rimmed eyes, he already knows he can't stop it.